then you give yourself, then your ratings give yourself. So we'll talk about that. And that's the whole purpose of this report, is to help you decide what you intend to convey to others and then be more skillful at doing that in the future.
And they all kind of align. The demeaning others, displaying anger, retaliating. I mean, there's very little differentiation between their ratings. And it's weird because if you look, mine kind of mirror that, but at a lower scale.
Right.
So
Right.
I want to look into that.
Sure, we will get into that a little bit.
And then, if you could look specifically at demeaning others, it looks like my direct reports were the ones who rated me the highest on that, which that's definitely an area of concern for me that I'd like to talk about.
So you don't want them to think of you as demeaning to them?
Absolutely not. That's the last thing I would like them to think about me
Right.
as their leader.
And one thing we'll point out there, as you can notice, since we're looking at it here at the demeaning others scale, you can see that your boss doesn't rate you as doing that, and really your peers don't either. I mean, you're in the average range here, below 55. What that tells me is that you do know how to interact with people in ways that are not perceived as demeaning. So you know how to do it, but there's probably something different that's going on when you're dealing with your direct reports. So, yeah.
So that's, yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on that, what that might be with the direct reports?
I mean, outside of the fact that maybe I need to tell them work that they need to do that they don't want to do. Maybe that can come across as demeaning. Maybe they feel the work I'm giving them is below them, beneath them. I'm at a loss. I'm not quite sure where that's coming from.
So that we'll come back to how that might tie into some other parts of these scales, like taking perspective, which is, we'll come back and look at that, because it's trying to understand where, if they're feeling like it's below them, and you're giving them an assignment that they perceive as being below them, then that would be something we can think about. Maybe there's a strategy that you can come up with that helps change their perception of your demeaning behaviors. Do you have any sense of what you might do differently with them that they're picking up as demeaning? Any?
Well, I guess the ways I would react differently to them than, say, my boss or my peers could be, I'm thinking, well, the only piece that I have differently in with them would be I assign them work. I evaluate their performance. I am in charge of their function of work.
Right.
And I feel like I'm pretty collaborative, but maybe I'm not coming across as, maybe I'm coming across as more dictatorial. That could be.
Well, we'll come back, because I think it's going to be important to try to understand what it is exactly that you're doing in those instances with your direct reports, where they might take it as demeaning certain things you're saying or doing, or your tone, or maybe your nonverbal behaviors. Could be any or all of those things possibly. We'll notice here that there's a high degree of agreement among the raters, your direct reports. So they're all four of them do have a sort of a consistent perspective that you behave that way in their mind, and so it's important. I think it's wise of you to like take that serious and say, okay, what can we do about that? Right.
I'm a very competitive person, so the winning does not surprise me at all. That's something I've been working on my whole life, is I don't have to win at everything. But clearly I need to work harder on that piece.
Well, and let's keep that in mind as we go through this entire report, because if you're a person who likes to win at all costs, the purpose of this is, of course, is for it's development and improvement on your part of your skills. But it's not a competition with anybody else. So we'll try to remain, keep that in balance if we can, with the competitive part, because we're not really competing with anybody here. We're just trying to help you to get some awareness of what are others seeing, so you can make choices.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's it for that page.
So as you pointed out, there are some things in this report that suggest you have some real strengths and skills too, so we want to not lose sight of that fact, because we're going to try to build on that foundation as you also set goals for skill development. Anything else in the report that struck your attention?
The scale profile,
Mm-hmm.
where it talks about my boss's feedback, I guess I'm taken aback by the does not communicate honestly or openly with the other person about how they feel. That surprises me that they would say that.
Yeah. Well, let me point out, and you may not have noticed above here, because most people are very interested in what people say about them. And this particular page on the scale profile, you'll notice here this statement that says these narrative statements below are really inserted using an algorithm or a set of rules based on your scores early on. So in other words, your boss did not actually write this statement himself or
Okay.
herself. But the statement was injected there through a computer program that looked at the scores. Now, we'll go back and look at the scores to see what might have generated that statement, but I just want to be clear, your boss didn't actually write that. If we want to see what your boss wrote, you may notice that that's back a few more pages here. I believe it's on page 19, where we can actually see comments that your boss wrote about you. On page 20, actually, your boss wrote something quite different.
Oh, okay. Okay, that makes more sense.
So she describes you as being professional and rarely becomes involved in conflict. So, so that's just, so we can keep a question mark by this and try to figure out where this may have come from as we go through the rest of the report.
Okay.
Yeah.